Bonjour les amis. Today we're going to be talking about irregular plurals of nouns and also talking about ER verbs. This lesson today is to prepare you for le cahier d'activité, page 18, les exercices 13 et 14, work, page 18, exercises 13 and 14. So here is an example of an ER verb. We call them ER verbs because, as you can see here, they end in ER. This is the infinitive, and that is the primary form of the verb before it has been changed. And in English, an infinitive has to, and so this would be to play. And that's the infinitive. Now, when you conjugate a verb, that means you're changing the ending of the verb or changing the verb in English to go with a subject. And you can conjugate it in English or you can conjugate it in French or any other language. So what we're focused on now is the rules for conjugating in French. And you can see the color code here that shows you the ending that goes with the subject, because that's how you know what ending to use, is by looking at what subject you're using. So je joue means I play. Répétez, je joue. Tu joues means you play, and that's you familiar, someone you call by their first name. Tu joues. Notice that you don't hear the sound at the end. Il joue. He plays. Répétez, il joue. Elle joue. She plays. And notice they have the same ending. Il, elle, and je all have the E ending. Je joue, tu joues, il joue, elle joue. And those are all the singular ones. Now over here on this side, these are all plural, meaning they refer to more than one person. Once again, they're color-coded so that you can see what ending goes with what subject. Répétez, nous jouons, vous jouez, il joue, elle joue. And you notice that you do not hear the last sound of any of the words. Nous jouons, we play, vous jouez, y'all play, or you formal play. So it's either for a group of people or someone you do not call by their first name, someone formal like a teacher. Il joue and elle joue sounds exactly like the singular form. You do not hear the ENT at the end of the word, and you do not hear the S at the end of the word. So that's an example of one ER verb, but all ER verbs follow that same pattern with E, ESE, ONS, EZ, and ENT. And all conjugation charts are set up this way, with je, tu, il, and elle on the left, nous, vous, il, and elle on the right, and in that order. So here's another chart showing ER verb endings, and this could go for any ER verb. So if you're talking about aimer, to like, or adorer, to love, or jouer, to play, or détester, to hate, all of them are going to use these endings. And so what you would do is take off the ending here, take off the ER before, on the infinitive, and then when you conjugate it, you take whatever subject you're going to use and you add the appropriate ending for that, which are E, ESE, ONS, EZ, and ENT. Here's another example, the verb parler, to speak. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle. So listen again, écoutez et répétez, and repeat. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle. Now moving on to plurals. First, let's do a little English lesson, because you may be thinking to yourself, irregular plurals, we don't have irregular plurals in English. Why do I have to learn this? Well, we do have them, and French kids have to learn them when they learn English. So here's some regular plurals. Dog becomes dogs, couch becomes couches, baby becomes babies, wife becomes wives, and echo becomes echoes. So for the most part, we add an S. Other times we add ES, or like in the case of wife, we change the F to a V and add an S as well. So there are, and change Y to I and add ES. Those are some rules that we know in English. Now here's what they call irregular plurals. When we make child plural, we don't say childs, we say children. Deer stays deer. Mouse becomes mice. Thesis, which is what someone writes when they're studying and they want to get their PhD in a topic, becomes theses. And corpus, which means body, when plural, becomes corpora, and that comes from the Latin. So those are irregular. This is a little lesson that French students would do, and you see here it says Comment reconnaître le pluriel en anglais? How do you recognize the plural in English? And then here's the instructions to a French student when they're learning English. Pour mettre un nom au pluriel, on lui ajoute un S final. To make a noun plural, one adds a final S. So they give an example. A girl becomes the girls. Une fille becomes les filles in French. A cat becomes the cats. Un chat devient les chats. Ce S final s'entend à l'oral contrairement au français. And this is the important sentence for you to remember. It says this final S is heard when you speak, unlike in French. So French students have to remember that they do have to say the S because they're not used to that in French. Now, here is a little chart, and it's not really clear or easy to read, but you can see that it has some topics here. So the first one is words that end in OU, words, and then the second one is AU, EAU, or EU, right there. Here's words that end in AL and words that end in AIL. So in the singular, you have these endings to words: OU, AU, EAU, EU, AL, and AIL. These are words that usually have an irregular ending. And so when it becomes plural, I'm going to put this on here, when it becomes plural, for the OU, you just add an S. For AU, EAU, and EU, you add an X. That's if the word ends in any of these in the singular, in the plural you add an X. And there are some examples here of exceptions, but you can't really read those on here, so don't worry about those. And then for AL, the ending usually becomes AUX, and AIL you usually add an S to the end. So this is when it's plural. These are what the endings have added to them. Or in this case of AL, what it becomes. Here's another one. Le chien becomes les chiens. La souris becomes les souris. And notice it doesn't change this at all. Le cheval becomes les chevaux. So the AL becomes AUX. And EAU for l'oiseau, the bird, becomes les oiseaux, and you add an X. Notice if there's already an S at the end, like souris, it stays the same. You just change the article la to les. So that's all we have for today, and that should get you ready for your homework or for your classwork tomorrow. Please make sure that you take notes and that you're prepared. Au revoir.